The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bridges. Buckner. Coleman. Cook. Quorum. Danielson.
Good morning.
Donovan. Finberg. Fields. Fields. Gardner. Janal. Gonzalez. Hanson. Heisey. Holbert. Hawkins Lewis. Kirkmeyer. Colker. Lee. Liston. Lundeen. Moreno. Pedersen. Priola. Rankin. Rodriguez. Scott.
Here.
Simpson. Smallwood. Sonnenberg. Story. Winter. Woodward. Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused, we have a quorum. Would the good senator from Alamosa please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you'll please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Buckner.
Mr. President, I move that the reading of the Journal of Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 be dispensed with and that the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 10th, correctly engrossed Senate Bills 67, 75, and 78. Correctly re-engrossed Senate Bill 107. Correctly enrolled Senate Bills 42, 53, and 55.
Committee reports.
March 9th, Committee on Local Government. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 84 be amended as follows, and so amended be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation of the recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar.
Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the bills or the bill listed on the consent calendar?
Senate Bill 75 by Senator Gardner and Janal and Representatives Tipper and Young, concerning supported decision-making agreements for adults with disabilities and in connection therewith, authorizing such agreements as an alternative for or supplement to guardianship.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of the one bill on the third reading of bill's consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 75.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 075 on third reading of final third reading consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 075 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Cook, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Moreno, Lee, Rodriguez, Kirkmeyer, Mr. Minority Leader, Hawkins Lewis, Fields, Bridges, Colker, Zenzinger, Pedersen, Winter, Story, Liston, Buckner, Smallwood, Woodward, Danielson, Priola, Rankin, Sonnenberg, Simpson, Heisey, Lundin. Please add the president. Third reading of bills. Third reading of bills, final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 067?
Senate Bill 67 by Senators Corman, Hanson, Representatives McCutcheon, and Carver, concerning measures to strengthen civics education in Colorado.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is a great deal of shame, that today I am here to ask for permission for a third reading amendment.
Will the good senator from Montrose please tell us why the body should give you permission to offer a third reading amendment?
Thank you, Mr. President. A good friend of this chamber for many, many years, and I worked very closely on this bill together. And as a thank you and a tribute to former Senator Lois Court, I ask that the short title of this act be the Senator Lois Court Civics Act of 2021.
The question before the body is to grant permission to allow for a third reading amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. Senator Quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And through my emotional times here, I would like to move L004.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment 004?
Amendment L004 to Senate Bill
Senator Quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As explained in my emotional plea for a third reading, I think this is important.
Will the good senator from Montrose move the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move L004. I apologize.
amendment.
I thought I had. But I think it's from time to time, I think we need to recognize members when, especially in the last session, the good Senator Court and I worked basically for more than a year, working very closely with Congressman Mike Kaufman and Congressman David Skaggs, and to come up with a bipartisan bill that some may think we do not need, but I think the good senator from Commerce City spoke to the real reason of the bill yesterday. And let the community, the members of the community, share that information with these young people. That's how we're going to change this, one young person at a time. So ask for an aye vote.
Senator Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I am so glad that we have this amendment in front of you. I urge an aye vote. And I just want to, I think, take a moment to remind ourselves that we're in a relay race. And each one of us has picked up the baton. We've got it in our hands right now. We're running as fast as we can to do the work for the state of Colorado. I am honored to pick up the baton from Senator Court on this bill to represent Senate District 31. And I urge you to support L004.
Senator Zenzinger.
I'm to the amendment.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to support this amendment, but I want to offer some nuance and some context. For years, I served with Marcia Neal, the member on the State Board of Education from the 3rd Congressional District. And Marcia was a civics teacher, a social studies teacher, and she said many, many times, you teach what you test. And we, Marcia would say, need to be more focused on civics. And so we should test more on civics. We should focus more on civics. And so I would argue that Marcia Neal potentially would have an equal purchase on a name placement with regard to this particular act. However, Marcia Neal, as a member of the State Board of Education, understood civics with a great deal of nuance and finesse. And Marcia Neal would argue that even though civics is critically important, the way that the process in civics is designed to present the education of civics is for the State Board of Education to develop standards that in fact pursue that. So I want to call out for the record, for the benefit of Marcia Neal, who honorably served the 3rd Congressional District on the State Board of Education for years. Marcia, your desire, your passion for the education of civics continues to move forward in a relay race, and sometimes in awkward and ways that are not in perfect alignment with exactly the way civics are designed to function, which at the end of the day is part of civics. So I want to honor Marcia Neal. I want to support this and acknowledge also the efforts of my legislative colleague, Lois Court. Am I in trouble for saying it just like that, Mr. President? The good senator from the most important district in the state of Colorado from her perspective. And I do rise in support of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I duly appreciate the senator from Monument pointing that out. And Marcia Neal is a really close friend of mine, and frankly, to the good senator from Monument, she didn't like you.
The question before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004 to Senate Bill 067. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Amendment L004 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday during this debate was in the chair, so I did not have an opportunity to come down here and express my thoughts on this bill. And I wanted to just be able to give a little bit of background as to why I cast a no vote for this bill in committee and why I will not be a yes today. It has nothing to do with my thoughts or feelings about the importance of this bill or the standards themselves, because I believe in them. I believe in them wholeheartedly. I am a current licensed social studies teacher. So I don't just support them. It is my profession. I am dedicated to the study of social studies. And currently in Colorado, we have a very strong academic standards in Colorado. And those standards for social studies, there are 8 statements that are prepared for social studies that our graduates must have by the time that they graduate from school in social studies. There are 8 statements, and 2 of them, the last 2, actually deal with civics themselves. And in the standards for social studies, it's broken up into 4 content areas. It's broken up into history, it's broken up into geography, economics, and civics. So civics is the 4th category. And in that category, it says that civics teaches students the complexity of the origin, structure, and functions of governments, the rights, roles, responsibilities of citizenship, the importance of law, and the skills necessary to participate in all levels of government. Civics is a foundational component of the educational experience and critical to the continued success of our society. A democratic and free society relies on the skills, knowledge, engagement, and virtue of its citizens. I think we all agree with that statement, and it's already there. This is what we already do. This is already the standard. So my main objection to this bill is not its importance and not its value. My main objection is putting this into our law books, because I think they need to remain standards. We need to be able to look at these standards, update them, look at the different nuances, every so often periodically go back and check them, make sure that they are relevant, that they are still good standards to have for our state. And I believe that they right now are situated in the correct place for that. I think we all acknowledge that there are many subjects that are important, such as science and math and reading, but we don't put that we must teach algebraic expressions in our law books. So that is my one objection. That's why I will be voting no today. I truly want to thank the sponsors for bringing this bill forward, because I think that they did two very important things. Number one, they just made this the most difficult bill to vote against, I think, in my legislative career with that third reading amendment, and I'm very sorry to the good Senator Lois Court, because this is not a reflection of my value of her either and her contributions. But then number two, I think the sponsors did a really good job about elevating something that I care about, so much so that I've dedicated my profession to, which is social studies and the role of civics. And I didn't just dedicate my career to it as a teacher, but I actually followed up with becoming a state legislator, because that's how important I feel that government and civics is. So I want to thank the sponsors today for their work on this bill, for the amendments that they made to it, and just respectfully wanted to call out my reasons today for why I will not be supporting the bill. Thank you.
Having no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 067 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Zunzinger, Kolker, Lundin, Woodward, Smallwood, Heisey, with 28 ayes, 7 no votes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 067 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Moreno, Bridges, Fields, Lee, Priola, Buckner, Pedersen, Winter. The Majority Leader, Janal. Please add the President. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 078?
Senate Bill 78 by Senators Hawkins, Lewis, and Danielson, Representative Sullivan, Harrod, concerning the responsibility of an individual firearm owner to report a missing firearm.
Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 78 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Thank you, colleagues. I rise again in opposition of Senate Bill 78. It's disappointing that I didn't get a lot of my questions answered yesterday. I still really struggle with the overall premise of this bill. When we hear that what we want to accomplish is to keep guns off the streets, that we want to help reduce gun violence, but instead we're going to create a law that addresses guns that are already on the streets, guns that are already potentially in the hands of the people that we don't want them to be in. I hope the sponsors work with their colleagues in the House to create some common sense exceptions to this, if this is going to be the law. I think there's ample opportunity and plenty of time to make this better. All right? We talked yesterday about, do we really want to impose a law like this on a family who has just been the victim of serious violence, kidnapping, murder, domestic violence, battery, the kinds of things that I think, colleagues, we can all agree, if any of us had gone through these things, quite likely the last thing we're thinking about is making sure that we reach out to law enforcement to let them know that among all that havoc that we've just went through as a family, as an individual, oh yeah, in addition to stealing A, B, C, D, they also stole one of my guns. And for me now not to be a criminal, I've got to remember to do that. I think there's some gray area there, colleagues. I think there's some gray area there that hopefully our friends in the House might be able to give just a little wiggle room for folks who have gone through something this horrific. I'm very uncomfortable creating what I think is for the very first time, a law that can make you a criminal by simply being the victim of a crime. Somebody breaks into your house, steals your stuff, assaults your family, perhaps kills somebody in your family, and guess what? You're the one that's going to be the criminal. So I still urge a no vote, and if that's not going to happen, colleagues, you have friends in the House, maybe reach out to them. Maybe see if there's a little bit of gray area in this where we can make this a little less draconian on the citizens of our state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Stand with my colleague from Douglas County in asking for a no vote on Senate Bill 78. I explained on second reading that people had asked, well, how would I vote on this? What would my position be on the duty to report a lost or stolen firearm? And my answer before I saw the bill was, I don't know. If the bill created a presumption of innocence, if it created an affirmative defense, if it rewarded people for reporting lost or stolen firearms so that law enforcement, the force of government, might be better utilized to go after criminals, find lost or stolen firearms, then maybe I could have supported this. But as I expressed on second reading, it doesn't do those things. As my friend from Douglas County just explained, it literally makes a criminal out of a victim. That's what it does. If you don't follow the rules right and report correctly, having been a victim of theft, you would then be a criminal. And I can't think of another place where our government does that. Maybe it exists. And ultimately, I don't know for sure. I'm not an attorney, but my concern here is that the duty to report, I think in the long term, what I expect is that people who are victims of crime, theft, and who report, follow this law, then will be identified if something violent happens, a criminal with a stolen firearm commits a violent act, that very quickly it'll tie it back to the person who was a victim of the theft. I hope that doesn't happen, but it just seems like the dominoes are falling in the wrong direction with the intent to do something right, and not an egregious bill, but I think it's our responsibility to think down the line. What are the unintended consequences? And I find those frighteningly easy to identify with Senate Bill 78. I wish that it was based on a different premise, but it isn't, so I ask for I ask for a no vote on Senate Bill 78. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues. I just wanted to make a quick statement about Senate Bill 78 and remind folks that the truth of the matter is that stolen guns are out on the street. Stolen weapons are being sold to people who shouldn't have them. stolen weapons are being used in violent crime. And if we can get more stolen weapons off the street, we should. In committee, we heard from a number of gun owners. We heard from sportsmen and women who supported the measure. We heard from victims of violent crimes. We heard from victims who were robbed at gunpoint. We heard from the family of a woman who was slain with a stolen weapon, begging us to pass this measure. The mother and the grandmother of Isabella Thallis came forward to say that when given the opportunity, the legislature should take steps forward towards curbing gun violence, specifically passing Senate Bill 78, which would deal with lost and stolen weapons. This is a measure that would help cut down on gun trafficking and cut down on gun violence. It's a step forward in preventing bloodshed, pain, and devastation caused by the gun violence. We have an obligation to our constituents to take that step and do the right thing for preventing gun violence as we can. This is a step forward in that direction, and I urge your aye vote on the measure. Thank you so much.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this bill, and I do agree with the good senator from Wheat Ridge. We do need to get stolen guns off the street. But this bill won't do it because they're already stolen. I said yesterday we have 32,000 guns that are stolen in this state alone. Well, a thief who stole those guns aren't going to go to law enforcement and report that the gun that they stole has now been stolen from them or that they lost it. This bill has nothing to do with getting already stolen guns off the street. We also heard yesterday that law enforcement supports this. Well, they don't. We heard that the Denver police chief supports it, and the Denver DA supports it, and the Boulder police chief supports it. Once again, that's Denver, Boulder, trying to tell the rest of the state what to do. It just furthers the divide between Denver and the rural part of this state. Once again, there's a war on rural Colorado, and Denver Boulder is leading that war against our values. I would say vote no on this bill.
Senator Corn.
Thank you once again, Mr. President. It's disturbing that every morning I turn on the news and there seems to be a shooting in the Denver metropolitan area. Very sad. As mentioned, we had one right across the street. But we're talking about this bill as if the gun is stealing itself. That doesn't happen. And we do need to get stolen guns off the street. But what we need to get off the street is the person stealing the gun. The person stealing the gun. That is the person that needs off the street. I mentioned yesterday, a friend of mine's on the gang task force right here in this district. And many times, twice a week, he arrests the very same person with a stolen gun. Takes it away from him. I'm not sure he's even locked up, but he's back on the street in a very short time. And repeatedly is arrested again and again and again. Let's do something about stolen guns. But once again, the gun is not stealing itself. Let's make those who are responsible for these crimes, make them responsible. And you will stop a good portion of the stolen guns on the street and the murders that happened each and every day. As for no.
Having no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 078 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Senators Scott, Sonnenberg, Lundin, Gardner, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Rankin, Simpson, the Minority Leader, Cook, Liston, Heisey, Coram, Priola, Woodward. With 20 aye votes, 15 no votes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 078 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Bridges, Gonzalez, Moreno, Hanson, Kolker, Janal, Fields, Pedersen, Winter, Story, Coleman. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title to HJR 1002?
HJR 1002 by Representatives Arndt and Senators Donovan concerning approval of water projects revolving fund eligibility lists administered in the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority.
Senator Donovan.
I move House Joint Resolution 1002 and do not ask that it be read at length.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of HJR 1002. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, HJR 1002 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Cook, Moreno, Lee, Scott, Winter, Simpson, Gonzalez, Liston, Sonnenberg, Kirkmeyer, Coram, Rankin, Pedersen, Bridges, Lundin, Gardner, Heisey, Woodward, Minority Leader, Priola, Smallwood, Janal, Kolker. Please add the president. Announcements. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Education Committee will meet upon adjournment 15 minutes from whenever the president hits that gavel in room SCR 357, and we're going to hear Senate Bill 37. So please join us.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Business Labor Technology Committee will be meeting today at 1:30. We will be hearing 2 bills and 1 confirmation, so be there, be square.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Today at 1:30, the Senate Health and Human Service Committee will meet. We have 5 bills that we're going to be hearing today, and that will be heard in Senate Committee Room 357. See you then at 1:30.
Mr. Majority Leader.
I'm not sure if we need to sign it, but I have signed it. Are you going to mention anything about Friday?
No.
Yeah. Real quick, sure.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. There have been several questions about the massive snowstorm coming. We'll see what materializes, but it does seem like it'll be significant. We will stay in touch and play it by ear in terms of what we are going to be doing on Friday. So we'll probably know more tomorrow and make a decision on what it looks like for Friday. Mr. President, we do have a couple of bills to read across. You do not need to be here for that, but I move that the Senate recess until 10 a.m. today.
The motion is that the Senate stand in recess until 10:00 today. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will stand in recess until 10:00 today.